BBC Radio.
Music News.
6 Music.
Music, Matt.
So as we announced a few weeks ago, Robert Smith from The Cure is curating the 25th annual Meltdown
Curating.
Festival. Oh, very good. You know, I didn't even notice that.
Curating.
They missed a trick there.
Didn't they?
The Meltdown Festival at London's South Bank Centre. There have been some incredible curators in the past. Patti Smith, David Bowie, Yoko Ono, Nick Cave, Morrissey, Ornette Coleman, David Byrne, John Peel, Guy Garvey, have all done it. Each guest is given free rein to stage their own cultural festival. Music and arts and theatre and spoken word, and installations and dance and film, anything they want. It all takes place at the South Bank Centre this year from the 15th to the 24th of June. We already know the lineup includes the Psychedelic Furs, Placebo, the Libertines, Manic Street Peaches, the Anchoress, Deftones, Nine Inch Nails, Mogwai, My Bloody Valentine, Kristen Hirsch. And some more acts have been announced today as well, including Death Cab for Cutie, Frightened Rabbit, God and an Astronaut, Low, Suzanne Vega, Emma Ruth Rundle, The Joy Formidable, Loop, Moon Duo, and many, many more acts. And a night billed as Curation 25, which is a special show that features Robert himself. It's going to close the festival. And yesterday, I spoke to Robert Smith. This is a world exclusive, and he's a man who doesn't do many interviews. I think this might be his first in 4 or 5 years, I believe. And it was just brilliant to speak to him. We talked all about the 40th anniversary of The Cure, including his recollections of their first ever gig, their epic 3+ hour live sets of recent years, whether they might play Glastonbury, the chances of new material, and of course, the Meltdown lineup, putting together such an enormous collection of artists and the honour of doing it. And just how do you tackle a project that vast? Here he is. When was your last interview? It's been a while, hasn't it?
I can't even remember, actually, the last time I did an interview. I kind of made a conscious decision a few years back that I would just kind of step away from blathering. I think we did some festival shows a few years back, and I spent most of the time, it seemed like, wandering around backstage at festivals, talking to various people into microphones, and felt I'd probably said enough. But yeah, I've just been waiting until I felt there was something new and something that was worth talking about, really, and this is the first time that I've actually felt compelled to do an interview.
Because it's funny, because it's sort of built up this whole sort of reclusive Scott Walker-y sort of David Bowie aura around you of like, oh, he doesn't speak, he's such reclusive, he's so away from the public.
I think in some ways it may be just a reaction to the fact that in the modern world, such as it is, people talk endlessly about nothing. So I think it may just be maybe a conscious reaction, maybe a subconscious reaction, just to not be part of that. So I think that in the past, I've done a lot of interviews, and generally speaking, down the years, I would do interviews around a particular project, and there would be a focal point, and I would actually try and illuminate, what was coming up, or why we were doing something, why I was doing something. It just kind of, if you just continue to do interviews ad nauseum, you just end up talking about absolutely nothing, and it just the whole notion of doing an interview becomes redundant. I mean, as it is, I've always struggled with doing interviews. That's the weird part of it, because when I'm talking about the band, I find it a lot easier because it's a collective effort, and I'm the spokesperson. But I've always found it very difficult to talk about myself in interviews, and actually don't find it that interesting even as I'm talking. So this privacy thing and trying to build up an aura, it's not really done on purpose. It's just that I don't have very much to say about what I'm doing if I'm not doing that much. I honestly think unless the band does something new, musically new, and releases something new, there is little point in me talking about what we're doing next. I did that for a while just to see if it might galvanise me in particular into doing something. If I promised we were doing something that maybe it would, I remember very early on in the career of the band that unscrupulous promoters used to put the name of the band on posters, thinking it would force us to play in places that we'd never even heard of. It didn't work then, and unfortunately it didn't work for me this time around. But funnily enough, doing this Meltdown thing has actually galvanised me, and I've booked studio time for the band. So if nothing else, then it's worked in a way that I didn't think it would when I took it on.
In terms of the Meltdown process, how does it start? Do you get summoned to the South Bank and sit on a velvet cushion and they present you with some scrolls and you get to choose? How does it work?
Yeah, how did you know? I've been aware of Meltdown for a long, long time, and probably the first time I was aware of it was when John Peel did it, I think, in the late 90s. And I've been to quite a few Meltdown shows over the years. I memorably went to Tricky played at Lee Scratch Perry's Meltdown, and that was a great night. Probably the most memorable for me was seeing Bowie in 2002, it would have been, playing the Low album, and that was so inspiring. And in fact, it led me on to doing the trilogy project, which I did with The Cure, which was doing 3 albums. We did Pornography, Disintegration and Bloodflowers albums, and made a film of that. And it was actually that night, watching Bowie, it actually inspired me to think I could do something along those lines. So right. I've always been aware of it. I kind of knew some of the people that worked there, and I just always thought it was, it's a lovely set of venues, the South Bank, and I realised the 25th was coming up, and it just kind of happened, really. I just, me ending up being curator, I was very honoured, actually, to take it on. I wasn't quite sure what I was taking on when I said yes, but I thought, how hard can that be?
Well, this is it. This is like, it's the most timeless pub conversation in the world, is it right? Oh, what would be your festival lineup? Oh, what would be the best gig you could ever go and see? And
it's kind of. I mean, it was last November.
Right.
I think was when I had sort of said yes, and I'd agreed. Well, if I can do it in this way. I sort of thought if I can do it how I want to do it, I'll do it. But I don't really want to do it just be like the front man for someone else's choice of bands. But they said, yeah, go ahead, book who you want, do it how you want. So for me, getting the 10 main headliners at the Royal Festival Hall across the 10 nights of the festival, I thought if I can get that, the rest of it will hopefully just fall into place. Right. Which it kind of did. Not really fall into place, but a lot of pushing and shoving. So I drew together, I kind of put feelers out, and some people aren't around, some people aren't playing, some people are taking a year off, some people are playing their own shows, doing other tours. And obviously, my dream festival, unfortunately, some of the people are dead.
That makes it hard.
Yes. My shortlist, once I realised, who would be around, who I could ask, and that, there weren't that many people who I originally thought of that weren't around, and my original shortlist pretty much materialised. I was surprised at how immediately people said yes without really asking what it was, or it's very heartwarming actually. Just to realise that a lot of people that I admired, in turn, I know that of some of the people, because obviously I know some of the people, but people that I've never met or spoken to, it's really nice that they would just turn and say, yeah, it'd be great, we'd love to be part of it. I fenced myself in a little bit because I thought I'm going to make the festival about alternative popular music. I thought I can't start broadening it out to stuff that I listen to, because there's no classical music on at my Meltdown festival, there's no indigenous music, there's no Cayley bands, there's no New Orleans jazz bands, there's no bagpipes. And I listen to, a vast amount of different kinds of music. So I thought to myself, what I should do is listen to newer bands. I've listened to more new music in the last 6 months than I've probably in the last 6 years.
That's great, though, yeah?
I think that's why it's kind of acts as a catalyst for me, because I've suddenly fallen in love with the idea of writing new songs. It's had a really good effect on me.
I've waited hours for this. I've made myself so sick. I wish I'd stayed asleep today.
One of the organisers I was speaking to said that she believed that you wrote a letter. You actually wrote handwritten letters to all the people. Is that true? Because that's brilliant.
Yes, I wrote to everyone that was invited. In fact, all artists I wrote to, because I felt that if I was going to be invited, I'd like to get a letter from whoever was inviting me. I was brought up properly, you see.
Who on the list are you like, I'm going to ask him, but I don't think this is ever going to happen?
Well, the only act that I asked, which was tongue-in-cheek, I suppose, which was the very first act I asked, because I thought, right, I'm going to aim very high. So I asked the Rolling Stones if they closed the festival, and they politely declined, because they said that they were playing their own shows they were playing a show in Twickenham or something like that. So I said it would be, actually, when I realised that the date in Twickenham was the week before, I wrote back to them and said it would be a perfect warm-up for you to do Meltdown, but they, I think they were doing other things. So it was very nice of them to reply, but I think I did it for a number of reasons. It's just, I think I wanted to alert the Meltdown organisation that I was aiming for, possibly bigger bands than they might be otherwise used to in the Royal Festival Hall. So once I got the Rolling Stones out of the way, I settled down into a more real world mode, and But yeah, there was hardly anyone. There was only a handful of people that would otherwise have been on the list, and they were unavailable for genuine reasons. But, you know, I kind of had to juggle people, but people were generally very understanding. I think the difficulty I was having and obviously this is the first and probably last time I'm ever going to do something like this. So I think people kind of took a deep breath and tried to kind of help me along a little bit.
The other big question is, are you going to perform?
The last night, the Sunday night, was traditionally held for the curator. And it's a weird one because last autumn I was talking to the others about how we're going to celebrate 40 years of The Cure, which was happening this July 2018. And I said, well, we should do something that weekend, like the actual anniversary is the 9th of July. And I said, well, we'll do something on the Saturday or the Sunday, the 7th to the 8th. That'll be fine. And we went through a whole list of things. What should we do? Go back to Crawley, where it all started, play in the pub where we did our first show as The Cure, or should we go mega and play a show in every capital city in the world? And we kind of, I sort of wanted to leave space because I had a feeling that if we didn't do something new this year, we would never do anything new again because it's the 40th anniversary of the first album in 2019. I thought if I don't have something out new that year, that's it for me. I mean, I just don't think The Cure will ever release another album. So I thought I'd better leave some time in case I do feel like writing, in case you do want to go in the studio. So I thought maybe just one big show would be good. And then Hyde Park came up. In that short gap, Meltdown had turned up. And so I was in a bit of a bind because Hyde Park were like, are you going to do anything else to celebrate? And I said, well, no, at the moment I have no, this will be it, this Cure show at Hyde Park. If I can pick the other bands that are on that day, this will be the day that we celebrate 40 years of The Cure. But that sort of mutated into only European show for The Cure, and I thought, oh God, suddenly it was out there that it was our only show. And which when I started to put Meltdown together, I thought, hang on, I've just stitched myself up a little bit here because we can't play at Meltdown. I then thought, in fairness to the people that bought tickets, thinking it was our only show, it wouldn't be fair to put on another Cure show because that would seem wrong to me. See, so my sense of right and wrong would be would be upset. So I decided to call it Curation 25, which is kind of recognising the 25th anniversary of Meltdown, but also the clue's kind of there in the name as to who's going to be on stage with me. It will be me and 4 other people that I know really well. But also some others, and we will be playing. It will be primarily the show will be drawn from Cure songs, I imagine. But there will be interpretations of Cure songs, and there will be different configurations of people on stage. To be honest, I haven't really kind of decided myself on how I'm going to do it. But I know it will be based around me and the rest of the band because. For me, it's all part. The summer's all part of a kind of a 40th anniversary vibe. So it will allow me to explore some of the songs that we don't play a lot or at all, and to kind of add in some different kind of instrumentation, that kind of thing, really. So whatever it ends up being, it will be completely different to the Hyde Park show, which is going to be a celebratory Cure show celebrating 40 years of playing music. So the Meltdown thing, I think it's going to be a little bit more weird.
Yeah.
And more in keeping with the idea of it being, the end of 10 days of the Meltdown Festival. So whether I'll rope in some other people who've been playing during the week, I don't know. I don't know who's going to hang around. I kind of know a couple of people that will be around, and I might ask to join us on stage. So who knows? It could be like a mass ensemble supergroup, or it could just be me and
a banjo.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm probably going to do something on my own on stage because I don't really, I've only done that a couple of times in my life, and I don't particularly enjoy it. But I think this might be an opportunity for me to push past that, push through it, and maybe see if I can come up with a way of performing for a few minutes on my own. I always feel very lonely when I'm left on my own on
really?
Stage. So I always find when I look back at it, I'm always looking over to the wings, like motioning people, please join me on stage. I kind of have to be a bit clearer because people are going to be buying tickets this week. So I would imagine don't go along expecting to see a supergroup. I imagine if you think it's going to be me and my 4 closest musical friends with some others on stage playing some Cure songs known and unknown, then you'll be buying a ticket for something. It'll be a good night anyway, whatever we decide.
10:15 on a Saturday night, and the tap drips under the strip light.
I mean, I was going to ask you about the 40th anniversary, but as to whether it kind of registers with you. But the way you're talking about it, you seem like it's generally proud, very fond of the whole idea of this, of marking it as an anniversary.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, really, because in some ways I hate the sort of legacy aspect of the band, because I don't really feel it is important. I mean, it's kind of there, but it doesn't really play any part in my day-to-day life. But I suppose it was just a way of recognising, for everyone that's been involved and for all the people around us, that it's been 40 years since we first went on stage as The Cure. I mean, it's been longer than that since we've been playing, and I mean, the band itself first played in '76, but we dropped the Easy Cure name and became The Cure and went down to a three-piece in July the 9th. So I've still got the poster for it from the Rocket Pub in Crawley. I found it in a box, which is quite weird. I would have kept it.
What do you remember from that show? Do you remember anything from it?
Yeah, I've got it on tape. Actually, I'm going to release it.
No way!
It was recorded on an old cassette tape. I used to record everything from the side of the stage. It's a bit scratchy. I don't know how else it's a bit grungy, but yeah, it's noisy and it's reasonably good. That particular show, because we'd been a quartet for over a year, and Paul Thompson, who was the guitarist at the time with us, it was getting rid of him and becoming a three-piece so that we could be a bit more kind of live and a bit more punky. We didn't need to have guitar solos. I was getting very sick of the tension that existed between me writing songs that were essentially kind of a kind of new music and being held back by having to insert 16-bar guitar solos in everything that I wrote. So by getting rid of the lead guitarist, it allowed us to kind of become a much more contemporary feeling trio, and that was our first night of that freedom. But we started the first part of the show with something called Mourning the Departed, which was so horribly pretentious, but we made this sort of elegiac music, and we dressed up as and we had a séance in the pub before the show, and it was all very tongue-in-cheek, but it was quite funny. It kind of set the scene for why, for those who didn't understand what we were doing, why we suddenly dropped the Easy and become The Cure. Because there were a lot of locals who obviously missed the guitar solos and were outraged that we were that we suddenly turned into this horrible sort of post-punk band. But yeah, it was good. Except I remember then it ended up in a fight, as those pub gigs usually did. But it was a good night.
You mentioned new material, this sort of idea of being inspired by Meltdown and kind of this new music and kind of thinking about getting back into the studio. How far is that? Are we lyrics scribbled on the back of envelopes, or are we demos, or are we...
Well, I've booked us time to do demos next month. So,
nice.
So yeah, by the time we come to do Meltdown High Park, we should... I'm in a dream world, I'll be playing a new song at both shows, but I won't tempt fate. But yes, by next month we'll be going in and seeing what we've got, so everyone's getting their own particular demos together, and I'm seeing, I'm going over what I've been doing over the last few years. I mean, some of it's really good, some of it not so good. I don't know, really. I haven't really thought about it too much. I've enjoyed, the last few years, I've just enjoyed playing with the band. I mean, I've just liked playing music. I think that there came a point where I think, unless, I never wanted to be in a position where I was forcing myself to write.
Right.
Because I've never felt comfortable with it. I thought I've found it very easy to write over the years. And it becomes more difficult, particularly lyrically, to come up with things that you feel genuinely, I really need to sing this, I really need to say this. So it was that, really. I think we could have done 3 or 4 instrumental albums over the last decade, but I just didn't feel a genuine urge to do it. And I thought, well, the catalogue's good, the songs we've got to call. And I mean, that's why when we played a couple of years ago, we did the world tour, I think we had a repertoire of more than 100 songs when we set off on the first show. So I wanted us to go around and play those 100 songs, so no one would ever know what we were going to play when we got on stage. And I thought, well, what is the point of flogging a new album if we've got all these songs that we never even play? So actually, I haven't really missed it. I think what Meltdown has done by listening to a lot of different kinds of new music and kind of becoming more aware, it's maybe reinvigorated my sense of creativity. I don't know. I just feel like I want to join in. I want to do something new. So yeah, I hope it works. I'd be happy if it does, but if it isn't, if the demos don't sound very good, then it doesn't really matter.
Talking about the long sets, at Hyde Park, when Springsteen played, there was a curfew and they cut him off. So, I mean, it doesn't bode well.
No, on the tickets and on the post and everything else, I've made it been a great pains to point out that we're playing for 2 hours, because there's no way, they won't do anything other than just pull the power, so there's not really much point. We may as well have a good end of the show within the time allowed us, rather than be 7 songs from the end and all the lights go out. I mean, it would be in some ways in character for us to celebrate 40 years of playing to do that, but probably not a very satisfying way to do it. So yeah, I mean, we're already setting up shows that we're going to be playing next year in 2019. So we are going to be playing, so this isn't like a last show or anything. It's just the Hyde Park thing is just a standalone, kind of a celebratory day, because like the other bands that are on with us are all bands that I love. So it's actually it's a whole day really. It's designed. It's just like hopefully be like a great day out. It's almost like an adjunct to Meltdown, because obviously there's some of the bands at Hyde Park I would have certainly invited to Meltdown if they weren't playing at Hyde Park, like Interpol and Ride and Goldfrapp. So yeah, I think it's going to be that'll be a good day as well.
You should do Glastonbury next year. I mean, come on, return to the scene. That'd be great.
Yeah, maybe. We haven't had a happy history with Glastonbury over the years. Although we've headlined it 3 times, we've never really been on the best of terms with them.
All the more reason to go back and do it properly.
Yeah, it's a historic thing. I don't know if they forgive and forget, then we'll see. But I don't know. They've always felt that there's been a slight problem there whenever we've considered it. There's enough, other festivals for us to play. I'm not, we've already kind of like signed up to do some things and others, but I think we'll end up pretty much going around the world again next year, but probably playing a mixture of festivals and our own shows. And I think we'll be playing different kinds of shows next year. I think we'll be recognising various anniversaries of like the first album, maybe Disintegration, I think is coming up for a big anniversary next year. Yeah. And also, if we do end up doing something new, then we'll be doing shows around something new, which will be new. Yeah, I'm just, at the moment, I'm just excited by it all. I hope it all works out. I'm old enough to know if it doesn't really matter.
What an absolute gentleman. What a haiku, Matt. You should be very pleased with that one.
It was just really lovely to speak to him. I mean, it's quite a good point. Don't do interviews for the sake of doing interviews. Do interviews when you've got something you're interested in and you want to talk about. And Meltdown is that. It is a brilliant lineup. southbankcentre.co.uk for information on that. And it takes place from the 15th to the 24th of June. It's just an amazing list of people playing from all across genres. And yeah, amazing to hear him talk about the fact they've booked some studio time to do some demos. Amazing to hear him talk about that very first Cure gig
on tape,
and the fact that he's got a recording of it and he said he's going to release it.
Who wouldn't want to hear that? That's amazing,
also funny to hear the fact you tried to book the Rolling Stones and they said they were busy. The whole interview, that whole thing is up online at the Six Music website right now. Thank you, Robert. Thanks to the Meltdown people as well, obviously. But yeah, and we've got some more exciting Cure news for you on Friday. That's all we can say.
Right, well, if you're a Smith superfan and a Cure superfan, make sure you listen on Friday, which you will be anyway, I'm sure. Love that idea of having a séance in the pub before that gig.
It's great.
It's great. A lot of old mosque gigs were a bit like wakes as well. Absolutely marvellous, excellent work all round, thank you very much. In the Kate Moss Hour, there is a distinct possibility, because of Riding Roughshod over the breakfast format completely today. We've had 10 minutes of jazz, we've got 20 minutes of Robert Smith. Let's have a little bit of eminent physicist as well, should we, after 9:30? We're going to open the box on Schrodinger's physicist, Professor Brian Cox. But right now, it's 9 o'clock. It is time for the news with Anthony.